Some lies don't explode, they don't shout, they don't even look like lies. They just slowly replace the truth, piece by piece, memory by memory, until one day you realize your entire life. Band was built on something that was never real. For 20 years, I lived inside one of those lies. 20 birthdays, on 20 family dinners, 20 years of watching the same scene repeat like a script everyone had memorized. Bands, my aunt would stand up, raised her glass, smile, that perfect practiced smile, and say, if it wasn't for me, this child wouldn't even have a future. And every single time, mean people clapped. They admired her, they praised her, they called her selfless, they called her strong. Bands, they called her a hero. And every single time I stayed quiet, because sometimes the hardest thing in the world is not telling the truth. It's realizing no one actually wants to hear it, but on her Lichter's birthday, amid in a room full of people who believed her story, I finally stood up and told them everything. And Binger, I was 7 years old when my life split into two parts. Before and after. Before, there was laughter. And there was warmth. There was a home that felt safe. I remember small things. The smell of food in the kitchen. Till the end, my mother calling my name from another room. My father laughing at something I didn't even understand. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And then one day it was gone. It didn't happen slowly. Jan's, there was no warning, no time to prepare, just a phone call, a knock. Ben's room filled with voices that suddenly sounded too serious, too quiet, too careful. I didn't understand everything, Banja, but I understood enough. Enough to feel the fear, enough to feel the silence, enough to know. Aminder, something was very mit Something was very, very wrong. They said accident, they said instant, they said they didn't suffer, but none of that mattered because at 7 years old, all I knew was, they weren't coming back. I remember sitting in a room full of people, relatives, neighbors, strangers, all whispering, all watching me. Like I was something fragile, something broken, but no one actually talked to me. No one asked me how I felt. No one explained what would happen next, and that was the moment, the very first moment, I felt completely alone. That's when she walked in, my aunt, confident, controlled, like she knew exactly what to do. She didn't hesitate. Didn't pause, didn't look uncertain like everyone else. She walked straight toward me, knelt down and hugged me. And in front of everyone, "Don't worry," she said. "I'll take care of everything." Those words, they sounded like safety. They sounded like protection. They sounded like something solid in a moment where everything else had fallen apart. Dem in the room reacted instantly, relief, gratitude, approval. People started saying things like, "You're doing such a noble thing. You're a blessing. This child is lucky to have you." And just like that, a story was created. Ben, a story everyone believed. She became the hero, and I became the child she saved. But what people didn't realize was that promise was never about me. Moving into her house felt strange. Not because it was unfamiliar, but because it didn't feel like a home. Everything was neat, organized, perfect, too perfect. And there were rules, unspoken ones at first, then very clear ones. Don't touch things without asking. Don't make noise. Maunjan, don't ask too many questions. Don't cry, especially don't cry. The first time I cried, she looked at me with something I didn't understand back then, but now I do. It wasn't concern. It wasn't empathy. It was annoyance. "Stop crying," she said. "You're not a baby." And something inside me shifted. MZ, because in that moment I realized something important, something a child should never have to learn. I wasn't there to be loved, I was there to fit into her life. Lum's the first family gathering after I moved in was the moment everything became clear. She dressed me herself, Lean carefully choosing what I would wear, fixing my hair, adjusting every small detail. Then she looked at me, and said, Neko, Nino, make sure you behave. Don't embarrass me. Not, don't embarrass yourself. Not be yourself. Don't embarrass me. That sentence stayed with me longer than it should have. At the gathering, everything was different. She smiled more, spoke softer, acted warmer. She held my hand like she cared. And when people asked about me, Amandi, she answered before I could, I'm raising them like my own. It hasn't been easy. But I'm doing my best. And people believed her. Of course they did, because what they saw looked real. And they didn't see what happened at home. They didn't hear the silence. They didn't feel the distance. They only saw the performance. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. And slowly, I stopped expecting things. I stopped expecting comfort. When I stopped expecting kindness, I stopped expecting to be seen. If I got good grades, she would tell people, I made sure they studied. If I struggled, and she would say, well, they're just not trying enough. They're just not trying hard enough. Either way, it was always about her. I learned to stay quiet, to keep things inside, to solve my own problems, because asking for help, Omengia, never led to anything good, and over time, silence became normal. But there was one person, Maines, who didn't follow that pattern. My grandmother, she didn't make speeches, didn't try to impress anyone. Ma'am didn't need attention. She just showed up. Quietly, feels Guadanon de Poring Prast showed up. Quietly, consistently, without asking for anything in return. Loaned. She would sit next to me when I studied, even when she didn't understand the subject. She would bring me food without making it a big deal, and when I got sick, she stayed. Not for attention. Lumbia, not for praise, just because I needed someone there, and for the first time since everything changed, I didn't feel completely alone.